to Turkey. He converted to Islam, and U.S. officials believe from Turkey he made his way into Syria, where he died during fighting near Aleppo. And the U.S. officials say they were aware of him. He was on a watch list. And they also say, as part of the statement they put out, that they continue to use every tool they possess to disrupt and dissuade people from traveling abroad to partake in what they call violent jihad. And they also say that they're tracking and engaging those who return. Officials here at the Defense Department refuse to provide any additional information on exactly how that's being done. But the consensus is, at least from the U.S., there may be as many as 100 Americans who are currently fighting with the Islamic State.
Jeff, thank you very much for joining us again on The World today. You've really shared very valuable information. I've been speaking with the Voice of America's Jeff Selden, who is at the Pentagon. Thank you very much. Now, in other news, pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine seem to be pushing their way into the port of Novozovsk, and they are also threatening to open up a new front in the war. The mayor of the town on the Sea of Azov confirmed rebels had entered as jubilant rebel supporters shared photos of advancing tanks on social media. The rebels have been trying for weeks now to break out of a near encirclement further north in Donetsk. Russia denies it is covertly supporting them on the ground. The fighting came hours after Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko promised a roadmap for peace in the east. He was speaking in Belarus late yesterday after holding his first direct talks on the crisis since June with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Mr. Putin, who is in Russia, has also denied supplying the rebels with weapons, and covert forces would assist with a dialogue, but he also insists that stopping the fighting is a matter for Ukraine alone. Now, the number of civilians killed during Israel's Operation Protective Edge offensive has raised international concern and condemnation. During the 3 weeks since airstrikes against Hamas began, more than 2,000 people from both sides have been killed in Gaza, with 2 Israeli civilians and Thai national killed in Israel. The UN says the vast majority of Palestinian deaths are civilian, but figures from previous operations over the past 6 years in the densely populated Gaza Strip show it's not the first time civilians have paid a heavy price. The UN has confirmed that 1,973 Palestinians, to be exact, have been killed, and 72% of them civilians, including 459 children and 238 women. The Israeli Defense Forces say they've killed more than 750 terrorists during the assault on Gaza.
Israelis living across the border have mixed feelings.
Now, the head of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, has been placed under investigation for negligence in a fraud case in France. In her defense, Lagarde said she has not been charged, but only questioned several times about her role in the €400 million compensation payout to businessman Bernard Tapie back in 2008. Ms. Lagarde was finance minister in President Nicolas Sarkozy's government at the time of the award. In French law, magistrates place someone under formal investigation when they believe there are indications of wrongdoing, but that does not always lead to a trial. The investigations are in relation to an inquiry into tycoon Bernard Tapie that has embroiled several of former President Nicolas Sarkozy's cabinet members, including Lagarde. Tapie, who supported Sarkozy in the last 2 elections, was awarded €403 million in a 2008 arbitration payment under Sarkozy's presidency to settle a dispute with the now-defunct state-owned bank Credit Lyonnais over a 1993 share sale. Lagarde was finance minister at the time. She was appointed IMF head in June 2011 after her predecessor, Frenchman Dominique Strauss-Kahn, quit the post in disgrace when a New York hotel maid accused him of sexual assault. The charges were later dropped. 57-year-old Lagarde is an antitrust lawyer by training, not an economist, which worried some when she took over the IMF helm. Yet, she had a strong international profile thanks to several years in the United States with Baker and McKenzie as the Chicago law firm's first female chairman.
I feel very proud, very moved, and just a little bit sad because it's a whole chapter of my life for France that I now have to move away from.
Lagarde has won a reputation for brokering deals under pressure as Europe grappled with economic meltdown. She played a key role in crafting Europe's response to the 2009 credit crisis and in putting together the 110 billion euro Greek bailout. As IMF head, she made an early call for banks to be recapitalized and said countries like Greece needed to show they were making fiscal efforts in order to win outside support. Forbes magazine also ranked her in May 2013 as the world's 7th most influential woman. Now, do you believe in miracles? Well, this story might change your mind if you don't. A 7-year-old Indian girl who was allegedly buried alive by relatives in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh has been rescued by a villager. Police say relatives first tried to strangle her and then left her to die in a shallow grave, and it's not too clear why they did that. The man who found her in Sitapur district alerted police. She was then taken to a hospital and is said to be doing well. Police are now looking for her mother, uncle and aunt who they believe fled after carrying out that sad atrocity. The villager who rescued her followed the sound of muffled cries to the middle of a cane field where he found the soil moving. Police allege the girl's uncle and aunt had promised to take her to a fair, but then strangled and buried her near the village of Semnigaura, where she lives. And they're yet to establish a motive for the attack as well. When we come back on The World Today, we'll be taking a look at our Africa stories. And 24 hours after a plane was allegedly shot down in South Sudan, the rebels say they are not responsible. Welcome back. You're still watching The World Today on Channels Television. It's time to take a look at our African stories. And of course, we begin right here in Nigeria. A special meeting of the leadership of the People's Democratic Party is currently ongoing in the presidential villa in Abuja. The meeting, which began immediately after the Federal Executive Council meeting, is also being presided over by President Goodluck Jonathan. Present at the meeting are the Vice President, Chairman of the PDP, and all the executives of the party, the Senate President, Secretary to the Federal Government, and all federal ministers. The agenda of the meeting has not been disclosed, but it is being speculated that they will try to persuade ministers who have intentions to vie for elections in 2015 to resign so the government can start looking for replacements. Now, 24 hours after a UN helicopter was allegedly shot down, rebels in the world's newest country are denying that they did it and that when the aircraft came down near the oil hub of Bentiu. 3 crew members died while 1 survived when the Mi-8 cargo helicopter crashed. South Sudan's military spokesman, Col Philip Aguer, accused rebel forces of shooting the plane down. Bentiu is one of the towns worst affected by fighting triggered in December when 2 factions of the ruling party fell out, but a ceasefire agreement is currently in place. Thousands of people have died in conflict that started as a political dispute between President Salva Kiir and his former deputy Riek Machar, but escalated into ethnic violence.
It was indeed very unfortunate, but still very much a reality. 3 crew members of the United Nations peacekeeping helicopter in South Sudan were killed on Tuesday, August the 26th, when their aircraft crashed on a routine cargo flight, and a 4th crew member is being treated for injuries. The United Nations confirmed the incident through Toby Lanza, the officer in charge of the UN mission in South Sudan.